Mr. Theorist here. Welcome back. Sorry, it's been several weeks. I'm sorry, time literally flies. If I don't make content quickly, weeks then pass, and yeah, I'm so sorry. That's not what this video is about. It's not a vlog. It is a theory slash kind of discussion video on the Robert Pattinson Batman film that's going to come out, and a potential rumour of Walking Phoenix being in it. But this video itself is, as I say, it's more of a discussion than just a theory. I was going to make this into a proper theory. I want to have kind of just a discussion with you guys because, yeah, it's on my mind and I think you guys might enjoy it. So what am I talking about here? Well, as you've seen, if you're a big DC fan, that in last year, I believe it was, Walking Phoenix did an amazing portrayal of the Joker. You might say it was nothing like Joker. It's very good like Joker, but he did an adaptation of the Joker. I was going to say written by, but I can't remember who the writer of the film was. They did a fantastic job. Walking Phoenix did a fantastic job of his portrayal of Joker. And it was a kind of standalone film. There were rumours that there could be sequels, but now I know there are vague rumours that Walking Phoenix could potentially be in the Robert Pattinson film, but only kind of like a cameo. Now this discussion is going to be, I'm going to pitch kind of an idea to you guys of how I feel they could do a Walking Phoenix Batman film. Because the version of Joker we got was basically a character dealing with mental health problems, and like how the system is so systemically broken when it comes to helping people deal with mental health, that it can just lead people who have mental health down dark paths. Now, to me, that would be an excellent idea for you to do a Batman film with Joker in. Now, wait till the end of this video because I'm going to do a proper explanation. I'm going to try my best and kind of pitch to you guys how I feel a Batman Joker film should go using Walking Phoenix's version of the Joker. Now, if you were to do this kind of film, I say you would do it as you keep Joker as he was in his standalone film. It is a man who has become, you would assume, if you take on the idea that this whole film did happen and it wasn't all in his head, which one version of the film you could suggest, but I don't think that would do the film justice if it was all just in his head the whole time. Maybe it would, but personally I don't think that would be true. But by the end of the film, he is seen as the symbol, the leader of this movement of people violently protesting that the system has failed them, which is quite topical to today, but I'll get into that a little bit later. And then obviously Batman is Batman. He is a vigilante hero who uses violence and fear to basically try and keep the criminals of his city, Gotham, in line. Now, if you imagine a film in which Robert Pattinson's Batman, he is several years into being Batman now, he's kind of got down the whole idea of being this really scary symbol. It's often was boogeyman-esque character to scare the criminals into not doing crime, simply by having his Batlight out in the open. Like Christopher Nolan's films, it got to the point in the third Batman film where the light would go off and criminals were like, nah, not tonight. And well, you got more chance of the Super Bowl happening than actually running into him. Yeah, but no, not tonight. And that's kind of what Batman goes for. But he also beats up criminals and thinks that by using fear and beating them up, that it kind of solves the problem. There are many people and characters in the Batman universe that turn around and go, look, your system doesn't work. Ra's al Ghul himself says, you think that by beating up on criminals that's going to solve the problem. It doesn't. They still go out and commit crimes. But Batman, because he has a certain moral compass, he will not cross that line, so he uses fear and violence to do so. Now, imagine if he came up against Walking Phoenix's Joker, and Batman's way of dealing with things is violence and fear. Now, us as audience members, if we watch Walking Phoenix's Joker commit a crime, as long as it's based within the universe and within the the mindset that Walking Phoenix's character has, we can understand that this is a broken man. This is a man that the system failed, and he did try. He really tried to keep himself in check, but the system pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where he broke and committed the ultimate act. He murdered someone live on air. that's an awful crime. We're not saying what Joker did was right, but this guy was deliberately using someone who had mental health problems for his own gain to make his show popular and get himself more ratings. And then everyone else, like, no one fully grasped what Joker was going through, but they didn't care as long as they could use him for their own personal gain. Even the rich man, Thomas Wayne, like he could have been empathetic. He had everything. He could have been empathetic to this man, but no. Instead, he beats on Joker as well. Like, no one cared for him. So to a degree, we kind of felt sorry for what Joker became in the end. Like, we don't condone what he did, but we felt sorry for him. Now, to me, that could be used in these films, because when you have Joaquin Phoenix's Joker commit a crime, like he goes and murders, say, a bank full... he murders the bank tellers? I'm trying to think of the name. Like, a bunch of bank-related people, like high-ups in a bank. Like, he kills them all. But in his mind, it's, well, they're broken and they're corrupt and they help themselves. Like, but he just straight up murders them. Like, that's wrong. It's so wrong. But to a degree, we can understand where Joker's coming from. Like, they are part of the system that made him who he is. Therefore, he punishes them just like he punishes the TV star. Like, in his head, this is all the same. Like, they're all just nasty people who are benefiting themselves at the expense of others. And then Batman comes along, and Batman just sees this crazy man murdering people, laughing about the fact he's murdered these people, and showing no remorse. Batman beats on this Joker, like, constantly pounds into the Joker character. Like, and we can see where Batman is coming from. Batman is still the hero. In his eyes, like, Joker is just a murderer. And he thinks that if I put enough fear and violence into this man, that he'll stop. Now, what I'm saying here is that Batman will use his methods, and Joker is using his methods as well, and they are clashing. They're both super violent, but one is clearly a villain because he is murdering people, and one is trying to be a hero but going about it in such a violent way. And I think it would be so interesting for a movie if it kind of shows you these two parallel aspects, and we can sympathise with both, because both of them will have their own films. I'm not saying this should be the film that Robert Pattinson is in, because obviously, from what I hear, Riddler and Penguin are going to be in it. So we can understand and see where Batman came from. Maybe not do an origin, but we can see how Batman became Batman, and we want to see where Joker becomes Joker. So when these two clash, we can sympathise with both sides. Joker is still the villain, Batman is still the hero, but to a degree, we're almost feeling sorry for Joker, because he's been beaten by this man who, I would say, you delve into the idea of Batman can't grasp it. Batman, the super detective, the one that can solve almost any crime, that uses gadgets and will never kill because that's part of his moral code to never kill. But Batman can't grasp who Joker is. He can't grasp how a man can be what Joker is. It's kind of like in the Christopher Nolan films where, Christian Bale can't grasp why Joker has the motivations he has. Like, and people have argued that what if this is a veteran, a war veteran who is so broken the system has failed him that he's become this psychopath. Now, Joaquin Phoenix would be kind of in a similar boat, but instead of him being like a war veteran, people suggested he is just a normal man who broke down because the system failed him, and he became this mentally broken character. So having a film where Batman is beating on this man, trying to make him stop murdering people, stop being like this, why are you like this? And Joaquin Phoenix is so broken, he's got this laugh that he can't prevent, and he's just giggling to himself because in his mind this man is just as broken as him, and he can't see it. He can't see how alike the two of them are, and he can see this connection. You see this brotherly bond, you could almost say like a lover's bond that Joker has with Batman. He's like, you are just as broken, and because you don't see it, it shows how broken you are. But Batman doesn't understand this. Like, this man is he's just mentally ill, and he needs to stop being so violent. And yes, it would almost make you kind of flip the idea that Batman would be almost the villain in that film, and Joker could be the non-villain. But Joker is still the murderer. He is still the villain. He still just straight up murders people because they failed him. and Batman doesn't. But he tries to use the fear and violence because he feels that by murdering people he becomes just as bad as them. And you almost have the yin and yang elements of them in this very dark, twisted way, kind of like, and you do it in a similar, not quite the same tone as what Joker is, but you don't do it as a comic book movie that the other superhero movies are. Like, keep the DC universe, the Wonder Woman, the Aquaman, the Flash. You keep that universe as it is, and you have this almost other universe that exists where it is darker, it's grittier. You don't even make it, like, even Christopher Nolan's films, like, they had a tiny, they were super realistic, there was kind of a tiny, like, comic booky element. You make them darker than that. Now, I am a big advocate for this Snyder Cut version of Batman, but that was still comic booky. I'm talking about you make it gritty in a sense that Joker films were gritty, where it almost didn't feel like a comic book movie at all, but it used comic book characters. And I'm saying that's kind of the tone you would go for if you were to make my Batman vs Joker style film. By calling it Batman vs Joker, you're kind of making it comic booky, so you won't call it that. You call it something else. But I think that would be such an intriguing, thought-provoking film where you can kind of see where both sides are coming from, and depending on what you feel, you could side with either side of it. Now, I said earlier on, like, in the Joker film, there's kind of like the protesters and everything, and, like, you could look at it from a modern point of view. Like, at the very moment, from the moment I'm making these videos, in America and also in Britain and other places around the world, there is Black Lives Matter movements. And what I'm saying about is how you sympathise depending on what your viewpoint is, like, you just look at the way people are talking right now, is that people, like, government officials are saying, like, oh, peaceful protest, this is how you do it, and these protests are being hijacked by violent acts. But personally, I'm not condoning violence in any way. I'm not doing that at all. That's not the point of what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that the people who are committing the violent acts, they're the ones the government are looking at. They're the ones that are getting the, like, are having this movement really be noticed to a degree, because peaceful protest, let's be honest, like, the governments around the world, they see the peaceful protest and like, oh, okay, yeah, and they're not really doing it. Like, I'm not saying that violence is the only option, I'm just saying that the only thing that seems to be noticed by the governments at the moment is when these protests have become violent to a degree, that's when the government steps up. Unfortunately, because we're in a system that's so broken that if a violent protest happens, the only thing we know how to react is imprisonment and violence themselves. Like, and we're stuck in a cycle. And I just, yeah, I think having a movie, especially made in the next couple of years, that kind of shows you, like, the brokenness of the system, that if you have someone who is using violent protesting and violence to put their point across, and you're then showing it with how do we stop that, with more violence, instead of someone who can grasp why they are being violent, why are the oppressed being violent like they are, that maybe it'll make people think. Like, movies do make people think. They do make people really look at the world and go, okay. Like, that's what the Joker film did. The Joker film made us look at people with mental health problems and ask, how are we failing? Not are we failing, but how are we failing? And how can we help them? And I think having a movie that follows on from that, of this mentally broken character, and maybe have some other oppressed factions as well. And Batman is the good guy. Police are good. Police can be the good guys. But when their sole way of dealing with a problem is to be violent back, because violence and fear is how they want, it's the only way they've trained themselves and others have trained them to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, they see that as the only option. They see it as, that's how you solve a problem. How do you solve someone being a criminal? You are violently you violently oppress fear on them to stop them being criminals. But that doesn't work. I think if you have a film that shows that, and maybe by the end of it, you could do this. This isn't setting up a whole set of films, but maybe have it as a film where this is how Batman would deal with Joker in a real situation where a man who is violent, but he is smart enough to eventually grasp, what if violence isn't the option, or what if it's something else entirely? we could have a film where he helped Joker, and that could be a nice conclusion to the Walking Phoenix. It's a man who started off being super violent, and Joker can Joker can connect to this man because he himself is also just as broken, and Batman can delve into his own broken mind. He's a child who lost his parents when he was young, and it just turned him into a violent man dressed in a suit. But then by the end of the film, you can have it where the two of them help each other. And wouldn't that just be an amazing thing? Like, yeah, it would be like, oh my god, like Batman beat Joker, or did Joker beat Batman? It wouldn't be like that, though. It would be the two finally found peace, because they finally grasp what brings them together instead of what divides them. And I think having a film that delves into the idea of violence begets violence, and violence cannot solve a situation, and also mental health, all these things that, look at the world we're in, are very topical for today. And then you have the movie end with showing us ways that we can deal with that, with how maybe when someone is violent, don't instantly jump to violence yourself. Try and have a peaceful way out of that situation. As someone who has mental health problems, like, instead of just trying to pop pills into them and put them into a mental institution, talk to them, try and grasp what it is that triggers their mental breakdowns. And to me, that would be a film that would be an amazing successor to the Joker film, would be an amazing Batman film. Have it be Robert Pattinson's film if you want to, and you don't want Robert Pattinson to be connected to the Walking Phoenix films because of the way and the motives and the subject matters that you talk about. You don't want it connected to this Robert Pattinson saga. Fine, have someone else be the Joker. Maybe have like someone who was big and gruff, and people can imagine being a super violent version of Batman to be in these films. But have it where it's someone who can portray a super violent aspect, but by the end of it can have this a Batman who is beginning to heal. And wouldn't it be a beautiful way if that's how Batman starts needing to be Batman? Because he understands that being Batman is just an outlet for his own broken, violent thoughts. And that, guys, is how I would pitch an idea for Joker versus Batman based on Walking Phoenix Joker universe. Maybe have Robert Pattinson if you want to connect the two. If you have the correct writer that can have these really gritty, thought-provoking films, but also make these Batman, Robert Pattinson noir films. If you want to combine the two, like, I would be down for that kind of thing if you could walk that line well. It would take some serious things, and also I would like to point out, I would not be making it so you could condone what Joker is doing as he is the good guy. No, Joker would still be the villain. I would say these films would be a really thin line to walk, where you would still have to portray Batman as being kind of the hero, but you kind of question his methods, and maybe to a degree you do see him almost as a villain, because let's be honest, he's a man who uses violence, but you would need to help sympathise with Joker, but at the same time keep him being the villain that he is. So I say, it's a very thin line to walk. As someone who has never written TV shows or films, who just in his spare time every now and again likes the idea of making shorts, I could never do something like that. There are probably writers out there that really could, but it would be a very difficult line to walk, but I think it would be perfect, and they should get on this kind of thing, especially in the times that we are at the moment, and just help bring people together. As much as I'm saying that violence seems to be the only way that the governments are really taking notice of these kind of movements, I wish violence wasn't the only option. I really wish it was like the Black Lives Matter peaceful movement was enough to make people really think about it. And at times, peaceful movements don't seem to. Yeah. But anyway, guys, I've said that in the video already. I'm now just mumbling. And I'm going to end this video. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, guys. I hope you're intrigued by my idea. I don't mind giving these kind of thoughts again. I know it was not quite a theory, it's more of a discussion-y kind of thing, but that's kind of how some of my theories turned into anyway. And that's kind of what you guys enjoy. So yeah, guys, leave a comment, tell me what you guys think, tell me if you're excited for the Robert Pattinson films, and whether you would want Walking Phoenix to be in those films. Maybe my kind of film is too thought-provoking for that kind of thing. But Walking Phoenix was super thought-provoking, and personally was a fantastic film that deserved every praise and award it ever got, because goddamn, it was an amazing film. And as always, guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.